Tyler Boyd's dip in production last year better correlates with Andy Dalton being off the field than it does with A.J. Green being off the field, despite public perception.
In 7 games in 2018, where all 3 starting Rams receivers were healthy, Brandon Cooks led the trio in targets, receptions, receiving yards, and total PPR points by a considerable margin.
I have no incentive to draft bad running backs on questionable football teams.
He's 4,800 on DraftKings. He's 4,800.
It's a beautiful day for football, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the RotoBros DFS Week 1 Fantasy Football Podcast. Guys, you got Mark Wemken, and I am flying solo tonight. Unfortunately, my partner, Chris McConnell, isn't too much of a DFS player, but I am. You guys know I love DFS. That's pretty much all I post about in FSA once the season starts. That's mostly what I talk about on Twitter, and that's pretty much all I'm doing with thequantedge.com this year with my 2 articles a week. So you can find me on Twitter at Mark Wemken. That's MarkWemken. You're going to find me at FSA, Fantasy Sports Advice and Analysis, on Facebook. It's a private group with over 13,000 members, so make sure you guys check it out. One more thing, you're going to find me every week at thequantedge.com, every Tuesday offering a snaps and targets report, and every Thursday I will be offering it'll be an injury impact report. So without further ado, guys, I really just want to cover the main slate, the 12-game main slate we've got for week 1. And honestly, the goal for this podcast every week is I don't want this to be an hour-long podcast. I hardly even want this to be a 30-minute podcast. I want to break down every game, who I like, what my projected game theory is, and that's pretty much it. There's going to be data here. I'm going to tell you guys what a lot of my rosters are looking like, who I'm rostering, who I'm not interested in. But I want you guys to use the information I'm giving you to build your own lineups. I don't want to build lineups for you. I don't want to give you lineups. That's not what this podcast is for. I'm breaking down this game for you and telling you who is in a good spot, who is in an optimal spot. So I want to start off with Washington at Philadelphia. We've got an over-under of 45.5. Philadelphia is a 7-point favorite as of right now. Case Keenum is starting for Washington. That automatically puts Philadelphia's DST in play at 3,600. Again, they're at home. This game could get ugly quick, and I expect Philly to garner a decent amount of ownership, but they're the second highest pass rushing grade per Pro Football Focus in 2018, while Washington ranked outside the top 20 in pass blocking. They don't have Trent Williams, and Case Keenum had the 7th worst passer rating while under pressure last year. So this is a smash spot for the Philly DST. Going over to the Eagles side of the ball, Carson Wentz is probably going to be my cash game quarterback. I will have a lot of Carson Wentz all over the board. I think Jordan Howard is in play, but I don't like his price point at 4,200. I won't really have any Jordan Howard. I like the idea of stacking Carson Wentz with some of his weapons. I'm mostly interested in Alshon Jeffrey. I like his price point at sub 6K, but I'm also interested in Deshaun Jackson. Something insane about Deshaun Jackson is over the course of his career, he adds about a full yard per pass attempt to his quarterback's total. That's insane. Carson Wentz was already averaging over 8 yards per attempt last year, or over the last 2 years. I'm interested in a Carson Wentz Deshaun Jackson stack. I think I'm more interested in Deshaun Jackson in tournaments, but I can get behind stacking Carson Wentz and Deshaun Jackson in cash. Wentz is probably going to be on 100% of my cash game lineups. I like him as a pivot off that Jimmy Garoppolo, Jameis Winston chalk. That's just me. Chris Thompson at 3,500 is in play, but I think you're getting a little too cute there. There's so many good plays between that 4 and 5K range at both running back and receiver that I do think you're getting a little cute. Jordan Reed is questionable in this game. He's still in concussion protocol. If Jordan Reed doesn't play, I think that makes Terry McLaurin an option for large field tournaments. He's very dangerous. I wouldn't do this anywhere else outside of a large field tournament. We do know he's going to be their X receiver. That's already been announced. I don't think 8 targets is out of the realm of possibilities for McLaurin, but it's not something I'm banking on. Moving on, we're going to go to Rams at Carolina. We've got an over-under at 50 right now. I don't believe that line has moved. I like Jared Goff in this game a lot. I like his price point at 6,200. He's another good pivot off the Jameis Winston chalk. I'm not rostering Jameis Winston anywhere. I might have a couple of shares in larger tournaments, but I don't really want him in cash. I'm not interested in Jameis Winston this week because I don't like his price point, and I think there are better plays. Jared Goff is one of them. So in games over just last year that had an over-under of at least 49.5, Jared Goff attempted nearly 40 passes per game. He attempted nearly 40 passes per game and averaged well over 8 yards per attempt. He averaged over 300 yards in those games. Brandon Cooks is in play. I think he's a solid cash game play at 6,500, but he's not somebody I'm going to roster a ton of. Cooks averaged over 6 more fantasy points per game with Cooper Kupp on the field than with him off. He's a great player to stack with Jared Goff, while a lot of the field is likely going to stack him with Kupp if they play Jared Goff. I like where Jared Goff's ownership is going to be. Nobody's talking about Jared Goff, and I think if people stack this game, they're going to look Cam Newton's way. Curtis Samuel at 4,200 is going to be uber chalk. I don't like the matchup on the outside against Aqib Talib. I think DJ Moore at 5,500 is a better play. He's got a higher ceiling this week. He's got the better matchup against Nickel Ruby Coleman and Marcus Peters. He's going to be lower owned as well. I mean, you look at what DJ Moore has done. He saw 26 slot targets last year, had 123.4 passer rating on targets in the slot. Marcus Peters won't follow him to the slot. That'll be a Nickel Ruby Coleman matchup. But on the outside, DJ Moore is going to see a hefty dose of Marcus Peters. And on the left side, Marcus Peters got roasted. 148.1 passer rating allowed, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions allowed on the left side of the field. Another play I like in this game is Todd Gurley. I mean, Todd Gurley's not expected to be on a snap count based on what Sean McVay has told us. He's only 7,900 on DraftKings. I'm comfortable rostering Todd Gurley all over the place with so much mid-range running back value. Like, we got Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, Nick Chubb, Damian Williams. Those guys are all in a spot to crush this week. But Gurley still has one of the highest ceilings on this slate. Gurley could easily come in here, drop 130 total yards, and score 3 touchdowns. This game is probably going to shoot out, and I do want exposure to Gurley. I'm not as comfortable taking him in cash anymore with this knee injury, and Darrell Henderson's there. Malcolm Brown is healthy. I don't know what to expect from this backfield, but I do want shares of Todd Gurley in tournaments. Moving on, we're going to go to the Kansas City and Jacksonville game. Over under of 52.5. This is the highest over under on the slate, and I'm afraid a lot of people are off this game. And I think that's a mistake. A Chiefs stack could easily be the nuts this week. I mean, the matchup with Jacksonville on the road could scare people off, but Tyreek Hill is only 7,600. He's only been this cheap on DraftKings just 3 other times, and that's including the playoffs since week 4 last year. I mean, I think Patrick Mahomes is both cash and tournament viable. You don't need to pay up for him in tournaments, but the ownership is going to be low. And anytime you can get Patrick Mahomes at low ownership, I'm interested. Stacking him with Tyreek Hill just kind of makes sense. I mean, Tyreek Hill averaged 21.5 fantasy points per game on the road, was seeing 9.5 targets per game. I'm all over this stack. I mean, Travis Kelce at 7,100 is a great pivot off of George Kittle, who I think is going to garner more ownership. Leonard Fournette at 6,100 is a better cash play than tournament play at this point. I think his ownership is going to be a bit higher than I was anticipating, but I like him in both formats. At 6,100, we may never get Leonard Fournette this cheap again the rest of the season. And I'm going to say that about a couple more players before this podcast ends tonight. D.D. Westbrook is in play. 4,800. John DeFilippo was one of the pass happiest coaches in football last year. DD's ceiling is a little ambiguous, but he should have a safe floor for a cheap cash gameplay. Ownership could get high for tournaments, but I still want some tournament exposure to DD just by the off chance that we see a 70% pass rate and he draws a 20 to 25% target share. DD Westbrook could smash in this game. Everybody could smash in this game. This is a perfect game to stack that a lot of people are off of. I'm interested in stacking this game. Nobody's going to play Damian Williams after the LaShawn McCoy signing. Nobody's going to play LaShawn McCoy because they're pissed off at him over ruining all their Damian Williams shares. I'm stacking the hell out of this game. I want Leonard Fournette and Damian Williams stacked together in my lineups. I want Tyreek Hill and D.D. Westbrook stacked together in my lineups, and I'm okay running it back with Travis Kelce. So do not fade this game. Attack this game. Load up on the cheap Chiefs while you can and get them at a low ownership while you can. Next, we've got Buffalo at New York. Over-under is about 40. This is probably going to be the lowest scoring game on the slate. I'm comfortable fading this game on what is a loaded slate with a ton of value. There's a couple of plays I am interested in. We're going to see what my ownerships look like on Sunday morning. I know I've got Le'Veon Bell in some lineups. We'll get to him in a minute, but it's a suboptimal matchup for Robbie Anderson against Tre'Davious White. Tre'Davious White allowed a passer rating of 60 in press coverage, 65 in zone. He was beatable in man coverage, allowed 102.7 passer rating when targeted in man coverage. And Robbie Anderson was good against man. He was very good against man. He caught 16 of 27 targets last year. He only saw man on 28% of his targets, but still, 103.5 passer rating when targeted in man coverage. This is going to be a fun matchup to watch, and I don't think Robbie Anderson's ceiling is going to be nearly high enough to roster him in DFS, but it will be a fun matchup to watch. He has gotten the best of Tre'Davious White in the past, so this is definitely one I'm interested in watching, just not one I'm interested in investing in. Josh Allen is in play as a pivot off of like that mid-range quarterback chalk. We've got Kyler Murray, Jimmy Garoppolo. They're going to garner a lot of ownership. Josh Allen at 5,700. I'm interested. Again, I don't know what my ownership is going to look like. I want at least one lineup with Josh Allen in it, and I would like to stack him with John Brown if at all possible at 4,300. It's a cheap budget stack that could explode if Josh Allen hits him for a 60-yard bomb. That's all we've been hearing about in training camp is that John Brown is one of the best receivers on the field for Buffalo, if not the best. And they've been connecting all year long, or all summer long, rather, 50 yards down the field. If Marquise Goodwin goes over-owned in the San Francisco-Tampa Bay game, John Brown is a great pivot and a great leverage play at that point. He's going to see Darrell Roberts and Tremaine Johnson. I am interested in this. Tremaine Johnson is vulnerable on go routes. That's all John Brown does. That's what he's best at. Darrell Roberts is not good. Darrell Roberts allowed 135.4 passer rating and press coverage. I don't think you're going to press John Brown, but this is going to be a fun matchup to watch, and John Brown is most certainly in play. Now, going back to Le'Veon Bell, nobody is going to roster Le'Veon Bell. Using the TQE matchups tool that we just implemented, he's got a 66th percentile matchup. That's good. That's on the higher end. It's the 12th best running back matchup on the slate using the tool. He could be one of the lowest owned home favorite running backs on the slate. Now, these home favorite running backs, you're looking at Nick Chubb, Dalvin Cook, and Chris Carson. All three of those guys are going to garner 15, 20, 25% ownership in tournaments and even higher in cash games. Nobody is going to roster Le'Veon Bell. At 7,100, he's less than $1,000. He's less than $1,000 more than any of these guys. And again, nobody is going to play him. Le'Veon Bell is going to see a full workload. I'm rostering Le'Veon Bell in tournaments. I'm not comfortable with it in cash just because Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, Damian Williams, I think they're better plays for cash. No, I'm sorry, not Damian Williams, but Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Nick Chubb. They are better cash game plays than Le'Veon Bell, but I think Le'Veon Bell is a better tournament play. Speaking of Nick Chubb, we've got Tennessee at Cleveland, over under 45.5. Cleveland's the favorite here, and Nick Chubb is the nuts. At 6,400 on DraftKings, he's setting up to be one of the chalkiest plays out there, but he's gonna crush. Cleveland players are going to draw some ownership, but I'm apprehensive about everyone's ceilings in week one. I'm fine with Chubb in cash, and I'm probably going to roster him in at least one tournament, but I'm comfortable looking another direction on Baker Mayfield and OBJ. I'm not comfortable rostering Corey Davis. He's gonna draw a shadow coverage situation with Denzel Ward. I'm not really interested in Derrick Henry as a 3-point road dog, but if you're playing Nick Chubb, I think it just makes sense. Run it back with the don't run it back, but roster the Cleveland defense as well, and just do a correlation. If Nick Chubb crushes or if the defense crushes, the other one is going to crush. So just optimize your lineup and use both of them and assume both of them crush. Atlanta at Minnesota, over under 47.5. Now, Stephon Diggs didn't practice on Wednesday. He had a hamstring tweak. I can't imagine it's anything substantial, but it's common knowledge in the DFS community that, Diggs splits on and off the injury report are ugly. They're ugly. And if his hamstring prevents him from going or for being 100%, Adam Thielen is going to look like a notorious value at, under 7K. His target share spikes upward by nearly 4% with Diggs off the field. His weighted usage increases with his ADOT boosting by 4/5 of a yard, and red zone target share increases by nearly 6%. He's going to be ridiculous chalk, though. If Stephon Diggs can't go, and even with the designation that he could be limited, Adam Thielen is going to immediately become chalk, and I'm hesitant. I think he's a better cash game play at that point than he would be in a tournament. He really hasn't balled out that well with Stephon Diggs off the field either. I mean, you look at some of these splits, we've got 3 games over the last 2 years with Stephon Diggs out. He only averaged 13.5 fantasy points per game on 10 targets. So the volume is there. I mean, when you're seeing 11 targets a game, you still have to roster a guy somewhere, especially when he's under 7K. But I'm apprehensive about the efficiency, if we're being honest. Moving on. Kirk Cousins, I'm not interested in, especially if Diggs were to miss week 1. He becomes more efficient when you take Diggs off the field, but the passing volume isn't going to be there. With this Gary Kubiak offense, I've been pounding the fist on this all summer and for redraft purposes and for best ball. The passing volume won't be there. He averaged 27 pass attempts per game over the final 3 weeks with Kevin Stefanski taking over the offense compared to 40 under John DeFilippo, who is going to be coaching Nick Foles. So I'm not interested in Kirk Cousins. I would rather just play Dalvin Cook, eat the chalk. He's good chalk. Dalvin Cook has a 30-plus fantasy point ceiling this week. Something else interesting is if Julio Jones decides he doesn't want to play, I know he might hold out for another contract. I know he's dealing with some injuries, but if Julio Jones doesn't go, that takes Matt Ryan out of the player pool for me. I'm not interested in Matt Ryan on the road with his best weapon gone. He's going to end up having to target Calvin Ridley. And with Calvin Ridley drawing the matchup then with Xavier Rhodes, I'm completely out. But I am interested in Devonta Freeman. He's only 5,300 on DraftKings. And running back target share for Atlanta doubles. It more than doubles. It shoots up over 20% when you pull Julio Jones off the field. So I'm very interested in Devonta Freeman if Julio Jones doesn't play. If Julio Jones plays, I don't think I'll roster any Atlanta Falcons. But in this game, Dalvin Cook all day against this defense at home as a favorite, against the defense that allows more receptions to running backs than any other team over the last several years. And this is a trend. This isn't a personnel thing. This is just Dan Quinn's defense. He gives you the underneath. He gives you the flat so you can attack him with running backs. This is just what he does. Next, we got Baltimore at Miami, 37.5 over under. I think the only play here is Naked Lamar Jackson, but it's not an option I even want a ton of exposure to at 6K. I'd rather just pay up $200 more for Jared Goff. Baltimore's a 7.5 road favorite. I'm not interested in his weapons. Mark Ingram could see 25 carries in this game. Mark Ingram is not a bad play, but at his price point, I'd rather just pay up for Fournette, Cook, or Chubb, regardless of format. His ceiling is nowhere near as high as the other 3, and I don't know what I would assume his floor is safe. I would assume his floor is safe if he's going to see 20 to 25 carries in this game, but Baltimore's defense is definitely in play. They're going to steamroll Miami's offense, and if you're playing Mark Ingram, I think it only makes sense to play the Baltimore defense as well. I'm fine with exposure to them in tournaments and cash. There are some other plays I like, so I won't be grossly overweight, but I will have some Baltimore DST. Not interested in rostering any Dolphins. There's no holes in this Baltimore defense. I don't know who's going to be playing the slot. I would assume it's going to be Albert Wilson, but this team also just signed Jakeem Grant to a $19.5 million extension. Did they just give him $20 million to return punts? I doubt it. Whatever it's worth. I mean, he's minimum priced on DraftKings, Jakeem Grant is, and he's going to be unowned. Like nobody, he will be 0% owned. Albert Wilson's ownership might get a little high. He is very popular among the industry, so I don't really want him anywhere. Not cash, no tournaments. I don't really want any Albert Wilson. Jakeem Grant is kind of a leverage play, but he's extremely dangerous, and I think he's too cute. I think he's getting too cute on this slate. Just there's too much value. Unless you're playing Mark Ingram or the defense, just stay away from this game. It's not worth it. We're into those 4:00 games. Indianapolis at the Chargers is a game I'm interested in because I think a lot of the field is kind of off it. Outside of Austin Eckler, I don't think a lot of people are going to play. Oh, okay, so outside of Austin Eckler and Hunter Henry's only 3,900 on DraftKings, and like I said earlier, that's the cheapest we're probably going to get him all year. Hunter Henry in cash is pretty much a lock for me. Carson Wentz and Hunter Henry at quarterback and tight end are the two locks. I can play around everywhere, and Dalvin Cook. I can play around everywhere else, but lock in Hunter Henry in cash at 3,900 and just walk away. Jacoby Brissett is 4,400. I think he's in play. I don't see a lot of people paying down. Nobody's going to feel the necessity to pay down at quarterback with all the value there already is with Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Jameis Winston. A lot of people are going Jameis Winston's way. And I know I've already said, like, I'm very interested in Jared Goff on this slate at 6,200. He's probably my favorite quarterback play, but at 4,400 with a safe rushing floor and deep ball upside, I don't understand why anyone would feel the need to fade Jacoby Brissett. I mean, he's got a good offensive line, strong weapons on the perimeter. He's got an optimal play caller in Frank Reich. The Chargers don't have Derwin James. Like, Derwin James is out. He only missed 40 snaps all year last year. This is a substantial loss for the Chargers. I'm not quite interested in T.Y. Hill at the price point. Like, once he starts getting below that 6K range, I'm more likely to roster T.Y. Hilton, but he's being priced up there almost into that 7K range. At that point, I'd rather have Adam Thielen. I'm okay with naked Jacoby. Playing him without a stack, I'm okay, or without a receiver, I'm okay with that. But I am interested in stacking this game. I am interested in, like, doing a Phillip Rivers, Austin Eckler, Mike Williams stack, or add Hunter Henry to that, or going Lamar, Hunter Henry, Austin Eckler. I would be very interested in that. So the Colts are 6.5 point dogs, which I think is interesting because I still think the Colts are a good football team. The Chargers, do we even know who the Chargers are? They're missing one of their best defenders. They still have Casey Hayward on the outside, and that's one of the reasons I'm off of T.Y. Hilton. But the Chargers' pass rate increases by 4% with Melvin Gordon off the field. Their passing success rate increases by 5%, and yards per pass attempt increases by 0.7 of a yard. So I can buy the Chargers pass offense in this game. I can buy Mike Williams and Hunter Henry and Phillip Rivers. Not rostering Keenan Allen this week until we know what's going on with his ankle. Not interested in Keenan Allen at all. But something worth noting is both Allen and Mike Williams' red zone target share spikes by 20% when Melvin Gordon is off the field. Mike Williams is only 5,300 and he's not generating any buzz. I do think he has multi-touchdown upside. He's got a lot of touchdown equity in this game, especially with Keenan Allen. He's been nursing that ankle injury for almost a month. Now, I mean, like I've already said, I'm paying up at running back for the most part, but Austin Eckler is very much in play. At 5,500, I just don't know what his ownership is going to look like. His ownership could be disgusting. It could be absolutely out of hand. So I want my shares of Austin Eckler, but I won't go crazy with him, especially in tournaments. Cincinnati at Seattle, 44 over under. Seattle is favored by about a touchdown. Chris Carson in cash at 5,700 is a lock. I've got Chris Carson in my cash lineup right now. I don't see me moving him out of there. I like the Seattle DST in cash, especially when I have Chris Carson in that lineup. I think that's easy enough. The Bengals are garbage. They can't stop anybody. Tyler Lockett is interesting, but I don't like what his ownership is going to look like. I think way too many people are going to look Tyler Lockett's way, and I don't think the volume is going to be there at least this week. I don't think and it won't just, he could see a 20 to 22% target share, but only see 6 or 7 targets. At his price point, I would rather just have Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd is the only Bengal I want in this game. He's the only one I want. He's probably going to see 7 to 10 targets, bare minimum, under 6K on DraftKings. Give me Tyler Boyd all day. I mean, who's playing nickel for Seattle? Justin Coleman is out of town. We pretty much just have to wait and see who they end up deploying out of the slot, because that's where Tyler Boyd is going to run at least 50% of his routes. AJ Green off the field, Tyler Boyd is all they have. Tyler Boyd is all they have in the passing game, unless we're counting like Joe Mixon and Gio Bernard. But I think Tyler Eifert is interesting in this game, but with Hunter Henry being right there and with Evan Ingram being below 5K, it's just I can't bring myself to roster Tyler Eifert with some of the other options I have. Detroit at Arizona, over under 48. I think that's high. I really think Matt Patricia and the Lions are going to want to slow this game down. Arizona is still setting up to be major chalk. A lot of people are going to look Kyler Murray's way. Christian Kirk is priced very fairly under 5K. A lot of people are going to look Christian Kirk's way. I want to see it. I want to see Arizona's offense before I'm comfortable betting all of this money on them in DFS. So I'm going to watch this game from the side. I'm not I would rather fade this game, to be honest with you, than to fade Buffalo at New York. I would rather fade this game because I think this game is going to be a lot chalkier and could play out a lot uglier, especially with the over-under being at 48. I don't like going against Vegas, but if I'm going to do it, it's probably going to be in week 1 with an offense that we haven't even seen yet. San Francisco at Tampa Bay is going to be the uber chalk. Over-under at 50. It's the second highest total on the slate. This is the game everybody is going to stack. I mean, Chris Godwin is a great cash game play at 6,200. I've got Chris Godwin in several cash game lineups already, but I think there are better options at Jameis Winston's price point. You know, I've already said Jared Goff. Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, is a better play. Josh Allen is a better play. I think Lamar Jackson is a better play. You know, I can't roster Jameis Winston over Carson Wentz, especially when Carson Wentz is $500 cheaper. I would take Wentz over to be fair, I would take Wentz over both Garoppolo and Jameis Winston all day long. Marquise Goodwin at 4K. I've been talking up in FSA a lot. I'm interested in Marquise Goodwin. I like the price. He's going to start. A lot of people are going to look Dante Pettis' way. A lot of people are looking George Kittle's way, but yeah, I will take Marquise Goodwin at 4K with that ceiling. George Kittle at 6,600. I mean, he's going to be chalk, but he's very much in play. I think George Kittle is set up to crush in this game. If you are stacking this game, I would rather stack Garoppolo, Goodwin, Kittle than like Winston, Evans, or Godwin and OJ Howard. I would rather the heavier part of my stack come from the 49ers. Something worth thinking about in this game, and I think this is really only in play for like large field GPPs. Jameis Winston is a very volatile passer. Whether he's home or away, Jameis Winston is volatile. He is prone to making mistakes. He's prone to throwing interceptions. And he's in another offensive scheme that is going to force him to throw the football 10 yards downfield consistently. 10 yards or more downfield consistently. I think San Francisco's defense is in play here. I mean, their front four looks good. They've got a nasty pass rush with Joey Bosa. Nick Bosa joining the pass rush. DeForest Buckner is still there. It won't be something I'm overweight on, but I'm interested. I think it could be a tournament winner if they can get Jameis Winston to make a few mistakes. Other than that, I don't want to stack this game because that's what everyone else is going to do, and I could see this game getting uglier than we're expecting. Last game on the slate is a game I'm somewhat interested in. We got New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. Over-under is 45.5. So Amari Cooper at 7,100, he's in a smash spot. I just wish he was priced below 7K. I mean, he's going to run 60 to 70% of his routes against a rookie cornerback that missed a lot of camp and Grant Haley. Grant Haley allowed 21 catches on 30 targets and 4 touchdowns and covers last year. Passer rating of 140 on the outside and 125.5 allowed in the slot. I'm not interested in Prescott with Ezekiel Elliott back. I was really interested in Dak Prescott when I thought he was going to be their primary goal line back in week 1 before Zeke signed. But now that Zeke is signed, I kind of want to see how the offense adapts with Kellen Moore. It's worth noting, like, Dak averaged 6 more pass attempts, 72 yards, and nearly a full yard more attempt with Amari Cooper last year than without. But he averaged 7.6 yards per attempt with Zeke off the field compared to 6.9 with Zeke on. So I think, especially after this contract, I think he's going to be more inclined to check down to Zeke more, and that has me concerned. I'm interested in Amari Cooper. Michael Gallup is going to garner a ton of ownership, but outside of that, I'm not really interested in Dallas Cowboys in this game. Ezekiel Elliott over 9K, count me out. I'm not interested in Zeke over 9K. Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram is in a smash spot. Target share spikes by 12% with OBJ off the field. I mean, he averages over 13 fantasy points per game without OBJ in the lineup. He averaged 19 fantasy points per game against Dallas last year. He's 4,800 on DraftKings. He's 4,800. Evan Ingram might be one of the best values on the slate this week. I mean, this is the cheapest we're going to get him all year. And this is why I'm struggling to get Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Hunter Henry into my lineups, because Evan Ingram is right there at 4,800. Cash, tournament, season long, whatever. I want Evan Ingram in my lineup this week. Guys, that's the entire slate. That was all 12 games. And like I said, I want this to be a quick hitting podcast where I break down every game and talk about the plays I like, the plays I don't like. I'm going to do this every week. And hey, this one was free. There wasn't a ton of data in it, but the next one will be behind the Patreon. It'll be for subscribers only. So if you're interested in more data, more DFS breakdowns, guys, you got to subscribe to the Patreon. And again, we're the RotoBros. I'm sorry. I'm the RotoBro. Thanks, Chris. As always, keep balling, baby.